Hello and welcome back to another episode of Politibabble. I'm Oliver Sykes, and today I'm joined by my most splendid co-host,
Archibald Elliott. And hopefully you'll be able to guess our topic of choice this week from the music that we'll play in a second. And there you are, hearing some of the wonderful sounds of King's College Choir in Cambridge. I'm not quite sure what music or mass was playing, but it was lovely to listen to when I found it. So, yes, we're discussing religion, or the issue of religion acting inside of politics. Aptly titled this episode, The Political Mass.
Indeed. It's been a very interesting few weeks.
It has, yes.
I thought, before we get into the topic, I thought it'd be important to acknowledge a very sad occasion which happened sort of at the start of September, about a month ago now. And, those sounds were familiar to us in a sense at the celebration of this fantastic person's life. How deeply saddened we were by the loss of Her Majesty the Queen.
Very, very much so. It was a most sad occasion, and I'm sure we'll discuss more of it later when we move into our current affairs. And it is obviously most fitting, because, supposing with this episode as well, because she was obviously the leader of or defender of the faith for the Church of England, so it does tie in nicely. And I suppose it leaves little else to say than God save the King.
Well, Archie, where do you stand on the point of religion in politics, firstly?
Well, it's a difficult point within itself, and we're discussing, I suppose, 5 themes I've jotted down, obviously far in advance for this podcast. Five themes, which I suppose we'll discuss over the next few hours. So we've got the first one, which is how does religion currently act inside politics? Then maybe how are religious morals used for creating political decisions? Is that wrong? What happens if the country itself is a religious country? Should religion ever influence politics? And then is politics perhaps becoming a new religion? I think after those 5 themes we discuss, we then might have an answer whether we believe that religion is either acting inside politics itself. Is it right for it to act inside politics? And my personal standpoint is I suppose, use the word indifferent. I don't think it's a bad thing, necessarily, or a good thing. It falls almost outside of that realm where we deem it as a good thing or a bad thing, that religion acts inside politics. But I think you take a different stance to myself on this.
Well, religion and sort of politics are two things that don't particularly, in my view, mix very well. Or, when they are mixed and they are brought up together, have created, in the past, some big events. And, like to sort of show with the passing of Her Majesty the Queen, she had a state funeral. It was conducted in a church. She was obviously the defender of the faith, the head of the Church of England, as I say, and it did bring people together of all different backgrounds, of all different faiths, and I suppose that's what we do at a time of mourning, and it was a very sad occasion, and like the music brought in there at the start, it just added something incredible to the day. But I suppose what I'm trying to say here is that politics and religion are just they're very two separate things, and when mixed, unless Her Majesty, who was a very religious person. Well, I'm under the understanding that she was very religious. She didn't seem to show it an awful lot, apart from that she attended church services. But that would be expected, probably, of a monarch, wouldn't it? Under the Church of England is the faith of the country, as I'd say. Christianity is the most popular religions. So she didn't tend to mix it too much with the politics, but I suppose she had
but
a different...
Could you furnish us perhaps with an example of why mixing religion with politics isn't necessarily good?
Well, I think they're both different things in themselves, and religion it's a belief that someone has, and across what we now live in a multi-faith world, especially in the UK.
Hasn't it always been a multi-faith world?
It has, but the faiths have become, people of certain areas have become a lot more sort of mixed, as you say. If you probably went back 100 years, there probably would not be as much of mix of faiths in Britain. So
yeah, I'd be inclined to agree there. But
people of those views are all... and I mentioned you got morals before, and that's really interesting, because I remember a teacher saying to me once, I'll say what I'm going to say later. Just keep listening for what I've got to say on that matter. But yeah, in my view...
But let's take the issue more perhaps locally. I know you like local politics.
I like local issues.
And we take the issue of Tynwald, for example, and their move or not move to have people sit out of prayers who didn't want to be inside prayers, and that hoo-ha.
The prayers are...
Do you believe that the prayers should still happen within?
Well, no, because the prayers are completely irrelevant to unless you are the person of that faith, and but we're not there. We're not the Christianity government of the Isle of Man.
Well, the Isle of Man, under the last census, we are a Christian nation by majority.
We are, but there are many other faiths there, and there are many other people that don't believe in a faith. So to have that,
Well, I've spoken to parliamentarians actually who are of no faith, to furnish an example, and even though they're not particularly religious, it does actually provide, as they said, a time for reflection at the beginning of the parliamentary session. So it provides a almost point for thought before you engage in politics, to have that moment of reflection and thinking perhaps we are just a little cog in the larger picture, and putting things in perspective, that these prayers can always help them put their place in perspective. You don't necessarily have to be part of that religion to have that aspect and force that moment of reflection, rather than just diving head in straight into thinking of such matters on a greater magnitude, but putting things in perspective. So surely isn't that useful as a part of the parliamentary process?
It is, but when they were sort of discussing, changing the way things were operated, they had an idea of bringing in sort of a thought for the day kind of process of people not under a faith, just speakers of groups, societies, etc., etc. I don't believe that what is said to me influences. It will influence someone of that faith, but if they're not of that faith,
but if it doesn't
then
influence someone, what's the problem?
It's not having any effect. So,
but what's the problem with if it has no effect, as you say?
Yeah.
What's the problem with keeping something with no effect?
Because it's not worthwhile.
But surely I could point to a number of examples inside Parliament where there's plenty of business conducted that, quite frankly, is not worthwhile. Should we scrap that too?
Well, you're now coming into sort of... I know you're trying to lead this into traditions and values, etc., etc. But
it's a very straightforward question, I think.
Well, I'd like you to reiterate the question, because I didn't quite understand
what
you're trying to say.
You said that prayers have no effect, and we can move on to the UK in a minute.
Yeah.
But we're talking about the Isle of Man. Prayers have no effect, as you've said. What's the harm in keeping them because they have no effect? And you say it's because it's almost a waste of parliamentary time. But there's plenty of other things that are a waste of parliamentary time. Should we also get rid of those?
Could you give an example of things that are wasting parliamentary time?
Wasting parliamentary time? 90% of the business that goes through. it's just all voted already through, and it just gets voted. And they have so many readings.
Well, then, should we have a vote on right?
What I'm stabbing at
Maybe
is
when it is relevant.
Who should decide what is relevant to parliamentary time and who shouldn't? We can stand here and we can say, oh, prayers, they're not a good use of parliamentary time. But
well, I'm not a parliamentarian. So.
But if the parliamentarians they vote to keep them as they've done, surely that's up to them. If they want to waste their time, as you may put it, on prayers, is there a problem?
I mean, it's only a short matter of the day, so it doesn't take up too much time.
Even replacing them with what you suggested as a thought for the day, surely that would have the same effect.
Yes, but it
prayer.
wouldn't be. People that there's people who in the chamber who can step outside because. At the end of the day, they've probably got other things they can think about, or they don't have to interact with to talk about. So yeah, I just see it as I'm just opposed to the view.
Interesting. Well, if we again look at perhaps move on to our next one of our 5 points. Although I think we should come back to. They all tie in together, really. The overarching question of how religion currently exercises politics. But if we look at religious morals, for example, where actually, I'll just ask you first: are you opposed to religious influences within inside our political system?
What do you exactly mean by that?
So, someone, for example, arguing. Let's go an extreme example because I'd rather not face death threats.
Mm-hmm.
But let's say someone says they're opposed to the Climate Change Act because they believe it contradicts the Bible, even though there'd be a ridiculous link between the two. But would you say that was wrong?
Someone can express that view, but I would be opposed to that view.
No, but okay, I'll bring in an extreme example. Let's say someone says that they refuse to vote on the abortion bill, as some have done, because they're Christian. Or refused, actually, we've got an example in Ireland with Andrew Smith, where he said no to a debate on assisted dying because of his Christian values. Do you believe that should happen?
I believe that he should have got, well, if we're taking him as an example, I believe he should have taken the debate on and voiced his to refute that at the earliest possible stage, I think was completely wrong. The whole point to have a debate is to persuade unless you thought the debate wasn't relevant because of your beliefs, but surely you'd want to convince people through having a debate on your standpoint, which was
Yeah, but sorry, maybe the example I furnished maybe wasn't the best one. But let's say he voted then. He went to debate. He was going to debate, and he voted against it purely on the reason of a religious standpoint. Is that a
no? Not particularly. He can express that view. I'm not. He can vote against it. There isn't an issue. What I'm saying is I don't think that political happenings and religion mixed together. People of a religion expressing their view and voting against something, that's completely fine. But having, say, for example, I don't know. I'm trying to think of something, but like you say with the prayers and other such means, utilising religious occasions and not occasions. I'm trying to think of the correct phrasing here, but the way that politics and religion basically, I don't believe go together very well. That's basically to get the.
So let me paint a hypothetical situation. I like painting hypothetical
I love
situations.
Responding to your hypotheticals, Archie.
This hypothetical situation focuses. I usually choose a country from a different continent, but because I'm classed, I suppose, by some as European, let's say it's a fictional European nation called. I'm trying to think of a nation that doesn't relate to any nation on Earth. Called.
Take a planet then, for example.
64us. Okay. And that's the nation, is called 64us. And they have a legislature, which is a unicameral legislature. So there's no second house, there's only a single house. And this unicameral legislature is made up of parliamentarians who are elected.
Mm-hmm.
The people elect them on the basis of their policy, and suddenly a social policy comes before Parliament. 90% of them are of religion Yugo, and 10% of them are of no religion at all. The country as a majority isn't majority Yugo, but they voted in the majority politicians as Yugo. This social issue comes before Parliament. And again, some Yugo views coincide very much with non-Yugo views. So actually, no, let's say this country is by the majority Yugo. And they vote through this bill called X. And this X bill is diametrically opposed to what Yugos believe. So it is getting complicated. So these Yugos will vote against it in 90%, and 90% do vote against it, and the bill gets thrown out.
Yeah.
Is that right or wrong? Because they based their principle not on any scientific finding on the social bill, where there's scientific evidence maybe to suggest the bill could work and could have a good effect, but they voted on it purely on their moral standing. And again, we must remember in the majority of the country, we are Yugo, so we may infer their moral standing or not. Some are more devout Yugos than other Yugos. Is that religion acting badly inside politics? Does that mix not well, as you've said?
It's a difficult one, and I see what you're trying to do here. You're trying to cross me over on the issue.
But I'm trying to just edge out an answer, hypothetically.
People of a religious view are entitled to express their point of view, but I think scientific moral standpoints should obviously underpin to a certain extent someone's decision, but scientific evidence should override that.
Well, I'm sure. Well, actually, we've got a perfect thought experiment later on this idea of rationality overruling our individual moral decisions. But rationality or scientific evidence doesn't always lead us to the right decision, surely. Mm-hmm. Let's say we had the scientific evidence, and scientific evidence came through which said that 10% of the population had to be killed to stop overpopulation. And it was backed up by 99% of scientists, and they said, to save climate change, we must kill 10% of Earth.
Mm-hmm.
Surely our morals should supersede that and say, no, I will not kill 10% of Earth. At least from some sort of standing.
I get what you're.
It's a very extreme example, and obviously things aren't so clear cut.
It's difficult. It's difficult because I think for certain situations it depends, and it's just one of those things.
Well, let's say this Bill X, which is going before 64us, their unicameral legislature. I managed to remember that in my head. So the 64us, their unicameral legislature. Let's circle back to that. And their Bill X is actually, we now discover, Bill X is about drug legalisation. Mm-hmm. And the scientific evidence says drugs should be decriminalised, so people can go into rehabilitation centres and get rehabilitated. Yeah. But the politicians are morally opposed to drug use. Mm-hmm. So they still believe people should be locked up for it. Yeah. Would that change our perception on whether, the majority of the country supports it? Mm-hmm. We've gone on this before, I suppose, on democratic issues. Mm. But should they be entitled to use their reasoning purely of the Yugo religion, that should be wrong?
I believe that if the scientific evidence outweighs it, then that becomes over your religion. Your religion obviously will found. Okay. I just don't believe that religion does get in the way of politics, and that's all I'm going to say. Yeah, I feel as though we're going around on circles on what I'm having to say.
Well, let's say it's 54. Let's say a different country, 54us, and their whole legislature is not religious, but they have their own moral views, and they've gone in same bill, Bill X, which is about drug legalisation, and their internal morals, they vote against it, even though the scientific evidence says that they're for it. We don't know why, but they voted against it. is that again another case of their morals shouldn't get in the way, even though they're not religious?
I'm not
morals?
saying that. It's a difficult one. It is. It
is
is difficult. These
yeah.
questions are difficult but someone must have. They must have had They must have a moral and the scientific evidence must sort of go intact together. So if
Why?
because drugs are bad for you because they will ruin. Let's say X drug will ruin you because it will decay your stomach. And you will die. Now, for someone that would be opposed to drugs, would go, now that's an awful thing. I don't think that is good at all, because it's going to hurt you, it's going to harm you, and it's going to be bad for you.
Yes.
So that then would inform the person to vote against legalising the drug.
Even though the scientific evidence says it should be decriminalised.
Well, I was talking about it. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So if someone believed that they had opposed view, that it was very tight between the pros and the cons on this drug. So people,
their moral views is fine to have a play. There's no problem with those two intersecting between morality and politics.
There's no problem with morality and politics being separate.
So you said earlier about religion and politics, and they don't particularly mix too well, you believe.
I love the
But
facial
does
expression.
morality and politics mix particularly well?
They have to, don't they? Because
They have to.
Because
Well,
as an individual, you'll take you take decisions off your moral. And I know you're going to keep pulling me up on this. Oh. Archie's taking note of everything I say to just keep going round. No.
But I'm interested on this point, and I'll circle back to my own view after I've put Oliver under the interrogation light for a bit longer. But you've said that morality and politics, they have to mix, of course, because as I agree to you, we can't really have immoral politics.
No.
If we said and we declared politics should be independent of morality, then I think we'd end up creating. We could have politics run purely by robots and machines. But there's a reason why people run our politics.
Mm-hmm.
But is there any difference between morality and a religion?
Well,
so Christians,
there are morals behind religions, aren't there?
Are informed on their morality, because of religion. People with different types.
But people can have morals regardless religion or not.
Of course, they have morals regardless of religion or not. But someone, let's say, who doesn't have a religious per se moral, and we'll come on to the issue of what actually is religion, and we come on to it when we ask politics: is this a new religion? Someone has, let's say, they're a utilitarian, as you may have come across in a previous episode. They believe that the best, for listeners who don't know what it is, they believe that they should take the outcome that has the best outcome for the highest number of people. And that's their moral system.
Mm-hmm.
How's that any different to that influencing their vote on a particular bill than it is a Christian politician who's influenced by their Christianity, their Christian morality on this bill? Is there a particular... why is it any different between their religion mixing with politics and morality mixing with politics?
Yeah, it's that I see what you're getting at here, but my overall aim is what I'm saying is that religion itself and politics. So let's say, for example, that now I don't know, the government believe that as we are a Christian nation, that we must do that euthanasia should never ever happen, but the majority of people are calling for euthanasia. Now, how does that? If we're saying we are a Christian nation, but people maybe of a Christian view are not necessarily opposed to euthanasia.
Well, it depends which branch of which denomination
there you
of
go.
Christianity they fall
So yes. So overall, mixing,
But we'll go back to the point where you're going over an overarching view. But clearly, then, on certain issues, the government doesn't just decide; it gets voted through by the legislature.
Yeah.
And the legislature, who will vote through that, and they may vote that way and say it shouldn't happen because they're Christian and their Christian denomination does not allow it, and they vote it through. The people elect those politicians. So why is there an issue of religion enacting in politics? They may say the government puts forth this euthanasia bill for legally assisted dying. I can't probably call it euthanasia. Legally assisted dying or assisted dying bill.
Can you not call it euthanasia?
Well, euthanasia, you can have involuntary euthanasia.
Right,
voluntary
okay,
so they're a bit more specific. Assisted dying. And the Parliament says no, they reject it. Not because they're Christian, because their own morality differs from it. How's that any different to them voting against it, was what I tried to stab at,
Right.
than Christianity informing their morals, than a philosopher informing their morals? Let's say they apply Nietzsche to morals or something, or Hume to morals. Where's the difference between the two?
Well, I suppose maybe your questions here have sort of have made me realise that perhaps I am incorrect. Perhaps
There's no correct or incorrect.
Yeah, it's difficult because it's only on certain terms, I suppose.
But I'm just interested how if we maybe reach an agreement that morality doesn't matter if it's religious or not, still acts inside politics. Because I do agree with you, morality and politics do mix well. I believe that Christian morality is the same as Buddhist morality could inform politics. But we are, I think, overall a Christian nation. But on the overall issue of religion acting inside politics, where you say they don't mix particularly well, I'm interested to hear why they don't mix particularly well, and ask on that issue, because I don't see much acting inside politics with religion. Maybe with religious services, and you maybe don't think they have too much use, but it has no more use than it has the same amount of use, I believe, or in some cases more use than a thought of the day. But I'm interested to see where religion we should have the secular state, almost devoid of religion, because we still have morality. Our morality must be formed somewhere. But I think it does perhaps come down to a definitional debate, which in debating is always the debate when you hate most. And I've had a couple of them where you can't agree on the definition.
I've also just come to I've just had a little think to myself. Yes. And from what I've sort of thought was, well, why do politics and religion not mix very well? Well, mainly sort of down to the factor that if people of different, it then turns into this religion war, essentially, rather than politics.
Yes, and so I think it leads us quite well into the next one.
Because at the end of the day, people then start becoming focused on the people squabbling over the religions and their religion and my religion and what our belief is on this and this and that, then the actual fundamental issue that they're debating, it becomes,
Is that not politics, though? You say they squabble over my religion, that religion, this religion, that religion, but don't we have a similar thing in politics? I squabble over being conservative, over Labour, over Liberal Democrats, over the Green Party, over UKIP. They squabble along the same things. Is it not a form of an Iraq?
But under a secular state, they would remain neutral over religious issues mixed with politics.
But it depends, as I say, it comes back to a definitional issue of what we class religion as. What's the bad aspect? What's this aspect of religion that makes you think it should be separate to the state? It should be secular.
Well, I just don't believe that things... Archie's staring me down here. It's quite hilarious. I just don't believe that things such... It's hard for me to get across what I'm trying to say, but yeah. Maybe we should leave this one here. It's quite.
Well, we'll get it.
If I come back to my point in a little while when I've had a deep think.
Well, we move on to our next. We've covered almost the points 1, 2, and 3, but religion's influence on politics. You maybe don't, as I've come across, don't think religion should influence politics. But let's say with something else, and we have.
Yeah.
Let's actually just call religion, let's break it down to argument form. We call religion why. And why, maybe, should why influence government, which is X.
Okay. Why should Y not influence government? Is
Yes.
what I'm trying
and
to
let's
say.
then replace Y. Instead of religion, Y is now pressure groups. Should
Okay.
pressure groups influence government?
Yeah.
Should they influence government? Influence politics. Let's scrap government. Should pressure groups influence politics?
Yes, to a certain yes,
Why?
because I think that they conduct research and construct good policy ideas, which can help inform decisions that the government or acts or ideas that the government could take out. That's one of the reasons.
Well, let's say a religious group
interest group.
has a religious interest group, and let's say it's a Christian lobby group, and it creates good policy. It does research. What's the difference between that and a pressure group, let's say, on climate? Why should there be a difference between the Christian lobby group influencing politics or a climate lobby group influencing politics?
I'm not entirely sure on that.
But
point.
you would say you'd be
Yeah.
more opposed to the Christian group, or let's say Islamic group. Well, I went to today. Let's say it's a Sikh group influencing politics,
Yeah.
or a Hindu group, or a Buddhist group. Is there any? There's surely no distinction between that and an issue. Let's say maybe climate's not a religion. It hasn't got that history behind it, but it's still at the principle. It's still a pressure group. It's still a lobby group.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a problem here? Theory things must influence politics.
Well, I think everyone has a different. Everyone is from different faiths and different religions, so there's different standpoints in those religions.
Of course.
So taking what could be a small fraction and trying to, and I know you'll go to say, but this interest group only acts for this, only serves for this part of the nation.
You can already second guess my point. I no longer need to sit in this chair. Oliver knows my point, so he can argue back against himself.
Yeah.
But yeah, what's the difference? I'm still going to get the point.
I know.
Where how's the distinction between Christian lobby groups lobbying for Christian interests is different to a climate lobby group lobbying for climate interests? They're both lobbying, but you would say you'd have less problem. Or no, not problem.
Not problem.
Maybe problem's the wrong word.
There's no problems at all.
But you don't believe the Christian lobby group mixes as well with politics as a climate lobby group mixes with politics.
I mean, yeah, I'm not really. Maybe I have double backed upon myself here. There is obviously not much of me more to say, really. If we get to that point, I'm digging into a hole which is nothing there. Maybe I should get on the.
Described it. We're here with a lemon squeezer.
Do you
Oliver is
have
the
an-
lemon.
Yeah.
We're squeezing the lemon, but we're not getting the lemon juice.
You're not no. Maybe I mean, where do you stand on this issue? Issue. I need to start asking the questions. It's been,
Go ahead.
It's been about
please,
15 minutes of
please
me
do, yeah.
relentless questioning.
Please
Gosh,
do,
now I know
yes.
how.
I don't believe there's a difference between a Christian lobby group influencing politics and a climate.
So, do you believe that that politics should be influenced by religion?
We can't remove it. It absolutely should. It should be influenced by everything. Religion influences politics. Science influences politics. Other morality and atheist groups will influence politics. It's a natural form of politics itself. Politics itself is fundamental about interest. And
Okay,
about
so let's
influence.
let's go back to a local issue. Let's say that in when would the next election be? 2026.
Yeah.
So in 2026, not your Aubrey Castletown and Maloo. Sorry for stating your constituency.
You all know where I live out of the very, very pinpoint area of Aubrey Castletown Maloo. Those three places. Yes,
It's that's why I said it's a broad place.
Yes,
so
carry on.
Aubrey Castletown Maloo, you have two candidates who
Yep.
do not express any religion at all throughout their manifesto whatsoever. However, all the other constituencies and all the other MHKs, the other 20, what would there be, 20, let me think.
There's only two candidates in our town lose, and there wouldn't be an election, because there's only 2 seats, so
there'd be 2 MHKs, not candidates, sorry.
Yeah.
There'll be 2 MHKs elected in 2026, and the other 22.
Yep.
The other 22 MHKs are elected, and they are all of the faith of Christianity, let's say, for example. And all they debate upon is, I don't know, Christianity is bringing in laws and bills to do with Christianity and making heavily influence.
Well, it's been voted in by the constituents. So yes.
Yeah. So, but wouldn't you be opposed? You're of no religion. You're completely opposed to the idea.
I'm a blob, so it's
yeah.
not me.
You basically be ineffective. I've just come to the conclusion.
But what was your point?
Well, how on earth how are you as an individual? You don't want to, and as yourself, you're not part of a religion. Not that I'm assuming that, but I'm saying in this hypothetical.
Yes, I'm just a person X in this hypothetical.
But you're against this sort of regime in itself that this religion is taking over. It's becoming everything. How would you deal with that? How would you, as a person who's completely against religion in politics, what would you do?
Well,
and what would you, as you're very close with your MHKs, and you're going on to them about how you and they are completely against this.
But what's the difference? As in, let's say the Isle of Man had a party system, and they voted. Those other 22 were Conservative.
Well, there you go.
I was Socialist,
yeah,
and the Socialist Party won 2 seats. And I didn't like this regime implementing their conservative policies. I was diametrically opposed to this conservative regime implementing the policies. There would be no difference in this scenario. There will always be disagreement in politics. The majority was voted in as Christian, and we work in this current standpoint as a democracy. Therefore, the majority support, in theory, again, it's all happy, hypothetical, utopian theory, the majority voted in for these Christian policies. However much I do as person X, I could be diametrically opposed to this. There's no difference between lobby groups taking those interests. Maybe it was a climate lobby group, and there are 22 climate candidates, and they're all lobbying for every bill to be about climate change. And I was part of the constituency where I voted for 2 climate skeptics. Again, the difference I don't see so much. There will always be influence in politics. Politics is always run through influence. At the moment, it's run through influencing mainly on money power. But this level of influence exists.
I think it was. I think it's been really interesting for me to have sort of, and it's been a big reflection, this podcast, for me to maybe think, to maybe realign, not realign my views to sort of what's right.
Be re-educated, Oliver.
But to have someone actually.
Rishi Sunak's re-education camps, or yes.
Is to sort of thought, well, perhaps perhaps I'm not of this. Perhaps I've come to the idea that I was of this view. That I was that I was against religion in politics because I see it as maybe not the maybe if I was someone who was very strong on certain things. Have we got?
Yeah,
sorry.
Yeah.
This has sort of made me think quite a bit.
But let's say we take politics.
Enough of the waffle from me.
And ask if politics perhaps is becoming a new religion. Is it the same as a religion? We've split into almost these tribes of we're maybe in this country we've moved away from the traditional religions. I am Protestant. I am Catholic.
Yeah.
I am Methodist, I am Anglican, and we've maybe moved, although Protestants, it's the 2 branches of Catholicism and Protestants, so I've maybe messed up on that analogy there. But are we perhaps dividing into the tribes of, I am Labour, I am Conservative, I am Liberal Democrat, and even if you see social justice movements and their influence on politics, is wokeness itself not becoming this politics where we must have these vows written down, we can't even disagree with them anymore? What's the difference between social justice influencing politics and religion influencing politics? So I'm dying of dry throats. It's not COVID, don't worry.
I hope
have
so.
taken the test.
I
He
hope
hopes
so.
it is COVID.
I hope it's not COVID. I hope it's not. I really do, Archie.
Well, we all know, as I put my satirical hat on, COVID doesn't exist.
Wow.
So, I think we can probably reach it. We've now... it's over there.
It's over there.
It's
We're
behind
just
you.
wondering where my drink was.
Yes. So perhaps we've come over to the end of our discussion on religion and politics, perhaps.
Perhaps, or should we carry on? Should we carry on?
Well, I can
should
continue grilling the...
should religion make us carry on talking about politics and religion in this podcast forever? You know,
I'm not sure where you're leading with that.
should religion inform this podcast, Archie?
I'd say in some way it has. We're discussing religion here today, so surely it has informed our politics. But I think I was aiming to get a guest on also for this podcast, but unfortunately...
Maybe they would have been able to give much clearer answers and not...
He couldn't make it, so hopefully we can get another episode on Oliver's favourite topic. And it's time for reflection after this, but...
Where does the guest that you were hoping to get on, do you know where he sort of stands on this issue? Maybe he'd be able to back me up a lot more here.
Well, we'll see. I'm sure we can come to discuss this once again, but...
Surely you must be of a polarising view to yourself or completely align with you, because we never have... Well, we either have either or, you know.
Well, there can only be either or.
Yeah.
But about religion inside politics, I don't believe there's any greater difference of religion acting inside politics as other special interest groups acting within inside politics, except religion has a greater history, a greater depth, a greater ability almost to deal with certain issues, because it's had that moral questioning for thousands and thousands of years. And perhaps our own morality system, especially in the West, so we are in a Christian country after all, our individual morality has been has been defined by religion itself, where we believe stealing is wrong, murder is wrong,
well, I suppose
adultery is wrong.
Yeah, well, I suppose we've probably been heavily influenced by religion. You know, in our primary school, it was Archie's taking a swig of water and nearly choked himself to death.
Yes.
I'll give him a second or two.
Sorry. Yeah.
But yes. During our primary school, we had lots of sort of religious people. And that will have informed us, won't it? And lots of assemblies
Perhaps
and
Oliver,
events.
all this time, has been trying to deny religion acting inside politics, when really he is the propagator.
Maybe I am the
of
problem.
action
Maybe
inside
I thought.
politics.
Maybe I was sort of hiding, masking behind the view that I was opposed, and maybe after all.
So have you?
So has this changed my view?
Yeah.
Are you trying to say? I think I have
Or
to.
does he need more time for reflection?
Well, I think I'm coming. Here we are. I've maybe formulated what I wanted to say overall now.
Hurrah!
Maybe I'm not of the view that people that I've got to be careful. I've got to think what I'm going to say here.
Always do with religion. Yeah.
Yes. Maybe I'm of the view that that I accept that religion should be, that politics and religion it happens, you know, and it will always happen. But maybe I'm of the view that I'm not the biggest fan of them going together. I think that's what I've come to the conclusion.
And I'm still interested too, as in
And he's
why.
gonna keep going.
We shall have to. I think we shall have to circle back to this when we have a guest on. Have a
maybe I will never
third
know.
opinion. Maybe Oliver just sits neutrally in his diplomatic position. So yeah, I must say it's been interesting. I'm always interested to discuss its religious influences inside politics.
Yes.
And what constitutes religion, but...
Well, what is anything these days, Archie? You know?
Indeed, but so there's some things we shall never be able to understand in our human lives. But going back to a point you said earlier, and this is breaking into a perhaps new segment.
Oh.
So it's a similar, it's be a recurring segment, but it's related. I'll get you to read it out. It is to a point you said earlier on morals being perhaps overruled by science. Should rationality always supersede our decisions? And I'll get you to read out this thought experiment from the Pig That Wants to Be Eaten, number 18. I'll get what was it entitled for you whilst you read before you read it out.
Okie dokie.
It's entitled "The Rationality Demands." So please do read out.
Okay. And it's from, you've already said it's from The Pig That Wants to Be Eaten, number 18. Based around ethics on rationality. Sophia Maximus has always prided herself on her rationality. She would never knowingly act contrary to the dictates of reason. Of course, she understands that some of the basic motivations to action are not rationale, such as love, taste, and character. But not being rationale is not the same as being irrational. It is neither rational nor irrational to prefer strawberries to raspberries. But, given that reference, it is irrational to buy raspberries when strawberries are just as cheap. Right now, however, she is in something of a fix. A very intelligent friend has persuaded her that it would be perfectly rational to set off a bomb which will kill innocent people, without any obvious benefit, such as saving other lives. She feels that there must be something wrong with her friend's argument, but rationally she cannot see it. What is worse, the argument suggests that she would set off the bomb as soon as possible, so thinking longer is not an option. In the past, she has always thought it wrong to reject good rational arguments in the favour of hunches or intuitions. Sorry. Yet if she follows reason in this case, she can't help but feel she will be doing a terrible wrong. She should knowingly follow the less rational path or trust reason over feeling and detonate the bomb. So, does rationality always equal good?
Yes, we're asking on this the pertinent question at the end of it, which is, should she follow the less rational path, not set off the bomb, or should she follow the rational path and set off the bomb?
It's very complicated, these thought experiments, Archie.
Well, they always are. There's no right answer, which is why
there you go.
I greatly enjoy them. But we asked a question on rationality. We must remember the argument at stake here, which has persuaded Sophia to rationally set off the bomb, is purely rational. It is entirely rational, and we don't get the argument, because to construct an argument that it's rational to just set off a bomb for no purpose at all, to kill people, I don't think we could reasonably construct a rational argument, or at least it would be debated against whether it was rational or not. But pretend here, for the sake of reason, it's perfectly rational. Which should she follow? You suggested earlier that we should follow rationality, which is science in some sort of sense, over our decisions on our morality.
Mm-hmm.
Would we still apply that in this case?
So what you're trying to say is here that she would detonate the bomb quick.
Should she detonate the bomb or not detonate the bomb? Because rationally, she has been persuaded that it would be perfectly right to set off the bomb. It's a perfectly rational situation.
Yeah, it's too difficult. So she sets off the bomb.
Should she set it off or not? She has to set off the bomb straight away.
She has
split-second decision. Because again, what happens again when we debate morals, in my certain point of view, is morals can only be applied when we think about it. We can't necessarily apply morality in split-second decisions. If we've got to shoot a child in a cabinet to keep the whole room of people safe because it would scream, we don't apply morals to that, because we don't think, we just have to do.
Yeah.
That we have to choose, do I or do I not? It has to be a clear-cut decision.
But yeah.
Here, I think, actually I'll let you answer before I put influence, because influence, if we apply a quote from Dorian Gray, is always bad, says Lord Henry.
Well, should she set off the bomb? So rationally, it would be perfectly rational to set off the bomb.
Yes.
And what would be the other side of it?
That she doesn't feel like she'd be doing the right thing. She feels that she'd be committing a wrong.
Yeah.
But should she knowingly follow the less rational path, which is against rationality, and not set off the bomb, because she should trust that she thinks it's wrong? Because she can't help feel that it's entirely wrong, but she knows it's perfectly rational. Or should she follow that perfectly rational line
I think
of
she
thought?
should go against the perfectly rational thought.
Why?
Because just because something's rational doesn't mean you have to go and do it.
Interesting. That's where you see I'd agree with you.
There we go.
In a sense. I'd agree with you. Because certain things in the world, they can't be rationally ascribed or irrationally ascribed. They are morals. Our internal morals that, as I think it was Socrates said in our head, his little voice in his head, which sometimes appears. And if we really think to ourselves, we do have that voice. We have that voice whether what we're doing is right, what we're doing is wrong. Even though right and wrong are extraordinarily difficult things to apply. And in this case, I would say she should trust her own internal morality. But leading back to the point earlier where you said we should trust science, where science is rational. But if I still believe, yes, the science makes logical sense. It's rational. It's supported by scientific fact. But internally, I still feel this policy is wrong. Should I still vote against it?
I really don't know. Can you repeat yourself again there?
So a policy earlier, which we called
policy, yeah.
Bill X.
Bill X.
But this bill is just clearly Bill X this time. We don't know what it's about. Science supports it. Rationality supports this bill.
But morals
If we were to
right.
mix rationality and science, but my internal morals don't support this bill. I have a feeling that I will be doing a terrible wrong, just like Sophia did here with Bob.
But surely something must influence those morals, whether it be the
But something's influenced her morals that she says she feels something will be doing a terrible wrong. And we've agreed she shouldn't set off the bomb. She should not listen to rationality, because we probably applied, by thinking about it, our own moral standpoint, where it would also be against our morals. But in my morals, in this case, go against scientific evidence.
Yeah.
Should I vote for it or not?
It's up to you, isn't it?
Oh, you can say the same here. It's up to Sophia, but we're making the choice for the Sophia. We're playing God in this situation. We're playing a divine creator. But it applies to many things in our world, where we think something is wrong, but we've been rationally persuaded it's entirely right. But we internally know it's wrong. And again, we may face a psychopath. But a psychopath sees no problem. His morals, his morals are the same as his rational arguments. He sees no problem with going forth and doing what Sophia feels is wrong. So it is a moral dilemma, but I think it actually it unintentionally ties quite well into this debate on religion and politics.
Yeah. It's difficult. It's difficult, isn't it? It's what would you say on the matter?
On the matter of
on the hypothetical you just gave to me, the bill. Yeah.
I would say follow the internal morals at this point.
Okay.
Because there may be something. I've probably changed my view since our last episode where we discussed morality, which was the ethical morality. Could bribery be ever wrong? And in some cases, I like to apply utilitarianism, but I'm not a devout follower. I can't believe it's right to apply in every case. Because some decisions, like this, we may be debating here. We could debate for hours on the morality. I think it'd be helped if we had some port alongside.
Oh, definitely.
At least I'll be able to bear my voice then. But going on that, we could debate for hours. But until we're there, we have to make the split-second decision. We won't know. We won't know. And we could apply different contingencies in it. We could even point to examples in Mao's China, where people were persuaded, and they did, denounce and report their best friends, because they were persuaded it was in the rational interest of the state and creating a communist society that it was right to call out their friends. It was right to report their friends to the authority. The same happened similarly in Stalin's Russia and Soviet Russia, or the Soviet Union. So it has been proved in examples in history that rationality follows here. But obviously, this argument, I think, it's so hypothetical that I don't think
it's beyond my...
It's beyond my ken of what could be a rational argument for blowing up that bomb for no benefit whatsoever. So it is an interesting issue to discuss, but I think we could pry this point for hours. And there's a thought to process, and I'm sure we'll be debating it for a while on the way back home. So I think we should shimmy along to our next part.
Well, of course, it's been a while since we were last here, so we've... well, Archie, go ahead with your new Conservative leader.
Oh, land of hope and glory, mother of the free, how shall we exalt thee who are born of thee? Singing from Land of Hope and Glory from Edward Elgar, or rather speaking the words, my singing voice is not quite up to it today. As
You had a
can probably
fanfare to introduce yourself,
Indeed.
though, so...
Who needs the singing? I just have the fanfare. So, the UPM Oliver, what's your thoughts?
Well, it's been a challenging couple of weeks for her. She's only... What is she now? 30 days into her premiership?
She's always been an anti-monarchist, you know.
Yeah.
That's the memes which circulate TikTok or that clock app at the moment.
The clock app? What's that?
TikTok.
Oh,
the
right.
clock app.
Right.
Yes.
I believe that, she's sort of taken a leaf out of the Trump and Boris playbook of playing the populism.
I don't think she's even done that, Oliver. I voted for her, and I regret it. I will quite happily say I regret it.
I think everyone regrets it. I think she's tried to play this hard line. I'm going to do this.
She scrapped the single best thing out of that budget.
Yeah.
She scrapped. Not the bankers' bonuses, not the cut on corporation tax, not the heavy unfunded tax cuts worth 40-odd billion. No! She cut the one worth 2 to 3 billion. The 45 pence on the pound rate.
Yeah.
Because she faced backlash. It's a string along to populism, but she's done an awful job. Her mini budget quite literally crashed the pound.
Yeah. Oh, she did. It was something else. But not only to acknowledge that, I mean, they thought they were celebrating. And Archie knows what I'm going to say, doesn't he?
Quasi Kwarteng and the champagne reception after the mini budget. Yes, we all know.
Archie, I think, is quite ashamed of the Conservative Party.
They've done an awful job. It's not conservative to cut taxes without cutting expenditure. Mm-hmm. We must have fiscal management. They scrapped that the 3-year fiscal rule.
Did she have the fiscal policy framework in place? No, she didn't.
Well, the only thing she had to deal with immediately when she got into office,
wasn't she?
I do speak rather fast, is the problem of energy. Only thing budgetary she had to face. She did not have to put a mini budget before Parliament that quickly. She should have taken the time to think, put budgetary plans in place, seen the OBR, got the reaction from the markets before doing this budget.
Well, they were in a rush, but they actually had a bit of time on their hands because there was
for
no
what?
parliamentary business.
Rush
and
for
Kwasi
what?
Kwarteng blames it on the passing of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II.
Which is nonsense because it clearly went down after he introduced this budget. And yes, the pound has bounced back up on the markets. The gilt markets have sort of recovered, but mortgage rates are still going up. And we must remember, as I think Rishi Sunak might have, in hindsight, done a better job. He wanted to protect those mortgage rates, and they're entirely linked to the gilt markets. But
basically,
I think they will get worse in the long term. They may bounce back momentarily, but she has no clue.
The funniest thing is that they said this was going to happen to Rishi, didn't they? They basically said something similar would happen to Rishi, but it actually happened to Liz, and that's funny. And
Liz is no good, as we've always known.
She's no good.
No, we thought she'd be good because she cut tax. She liked cutting tax. I thought it'd be fiscal managed. She might cut expenditure. They weren't going to be unfunded. That's what I thought.
Doesn't the Chancellor of the Exchequer have a PhD
dear.
in economics at Oxford University?
Is it Cambridge to start? It might be Oxford.
Maybe Cambridge. Sorry.
I don't know. Don't quote me on that. It is beggars' belief how this has happened. But Liz Truss, I thought she'd get better. And she'd at least, when she's Prime Minister, have a proper speechwriter who'd write her speeches. But she's only good at sound bites. She's very good at getting that soundbite in a debate. Very much.
She's also not very good at interviews
she
saw
can't
on
interview and she
Laura
can't
Gunsberg.
speak.
I mean, she literally pauses there and
she does the same in her conference speech. We import 2/3 of our cheese, and that is a disgrace.
But
there's a wonderful impersonator. I can't remember who she is. Who does the most spitting image of her on YouTube and social media. It's very much, well, we're taking a decisive plan of action. The weird smile and hands. Wait for pause. And she does it in the Laura Gunsberg. She won't answer the question either more Quasi-Kwarteng.
And funny enough, when I was listening to another great political podcast, The Rest is Politics podcast, although
not as good as ours.
It's not as good as ours. It's not designed by the youth for the youth. But I've frozen. Much
Just
like
like Liz Truss does
much
quite a lot.
much like I have done today. So they were saying about how she, like, her Adam's apple like moves up and she gulps when you can tell that she either is crapping herself or is, you know, doesn't know the answer to a question or is lying because she's
better, as I've said in our previous podcast, when she's one-to-one.
Oh, is that because she's not being challenged? Because she's with her little conservative friends, Archie? Here he is.
No,
he said,
they
she was fantastic on the Zoom call. Fantastic with, yes, because she wasn't being challenged at all by anyone. They were all agreeing
more
with her.
genuine than Rishi. But I think at this time, I'd rather non-genuineness, but actual proper answers, which answer the question. Then,
Will you be...
economic mismanagement.
So, does this mean that you will be moving across the benches to the finest...
Certainly not.
Ah.
Why do you move across... Liz Truss may be bad, but she's still, as the Conservatives believe, an awful lot better than
Well,
the back on the other bet.
well, that does take us on to Sir Keir Starmer, who is flying ahead in the polls. I saw... He's taken another chunk out of her today. He seemed to have a great reception at the party conference last week or the week before in Liverpool. A lot better than Liz Truss has had. I mean, I saw videos on social media of MPs and the like at the Conservative Party conference falling asleep, dozing off, not even taking any interest in the speeches. Apparently it was an absolute shambles. But Keir Starmer had it pulled together, and he has the great British energy, whatever he's doing.
I wouldn't have said it was pulled together. It was an attempt to be Blair. But the problem is, he lacks the charisma of Blair. Yes, at this time he may seem to some a better option than Liz Truss. But we look at his deputy, Angela Rayner. We look at these people in his cabinet and we think, would I trust them with the country? My answer
we've
is
got a former leader of the shadow cabinet, leader of the Labour Party. We've got Ed Miliband in there. He actually knows what he's on about when it comes to energy, unlike Moggy.
No, I'd say Jacob Rees-Mogg I would trust more than Ed Miliband. But we must remember, this is the interim period. Liz Truss is treating this like we treat the golden rule in politics.
The first 100 days is the most important days, or whatever.
No, it's the 2 year. It's a 3 and 2 year rule. You do the worst stuff, harshest stuff in the first bits of office.
Yeah.
And towards the end, the last 2 years, it's all electioneering. No hard policy, all good policy, all happy news.
She's got to really.
Doing this, and she's got 18 months.
She's got to really sort herself out.
She's putting the hard stuff in, which we think it is some political commentators, some political analysts think she's putting hard stuff in now and will recover. In 18 months.
She can't recover if she's not got the money there to do anything.
Whether her budget, again, we must remember, it's just a budgetary statement. It hasn't been voted through.
Yeah.
It's already been watered down once. Will it be watered down more? That's the question.
More, and U-turn after U-turn after U-turn will show that the Conservative Party is not fit to be...
How? Surely U-turn shows they're listening, Oliver.
It shows they're listening, but clearly the way that...
Is listening not good in politics?
It is good. Yes,
then
it is.
what's wrong with them taking U-turns?
Because it just shows that you are taking on board the views of what the electorate want, which is what
Is
the other parties.
Is that bad? The government taking on the views of what the electorate wants.
But that's the views of what the Labour Party you have been.
Surely what the electorate wants is what should be in government. Would you disagree?
Yes, but
then what's wrong with
the electorate? But the electorate are lobbying. The electorate are lobbying the government as well as the. That's why. Because
what's wrong with that?
Well, because the government are no longer going to be the government because it just shows how incompetent they are.
So you prefer the government to stick to their policy?
Well, if you're wasting time going on U-turns, it's costing money, it's costing parliamentary time.
Surely a U-turn on taxation, which removes 2 billion to 3 billion less...
It's a good thing. I'm not saying it's not a good thing. I'm just saying it's not a good thing for that party.
It's less wasteful than continuing with it. More money is kept.
Oh, yes, I'm not saying that. But why? But they're wasting money by taking that in the first... They're destroying their reputation.
Yes, but Oliver, you've said the government should follow what the electorate wants.
Yes, and they don't do that in the first place.
But the government's U-turning to follow what you've said the electorate wants.
Which is as well as what the opposition are wanting.
But why is that bad?
Well, if you keep taking on board of the opposition's policies and advice, then it just shows that you are.
But we're not talking about the reputation front. We're talking about the policy decisions. Is that decision bad or right? Is that decision wrong to take?
I'm not saying it's not wrong, but I'm saying it will be affecting them.
Well, it may be. I think we'll have to play and see. I don't think they're putting themselves in a strong position. Playing devil's advocate there, they're doing absolutely atrociously. And yes, their reputation is in tatters. So
the Labour Party are looking stronger than ever. They have.
Oh,
I mean, after 12 years of Conservative austerity, Archie.
I disagree here. The Labour Party is not looking stronger than ever. It's just as strong as it was.
I'd also like to get on.
It's just as weak as it was. The
I'd
problem
also
is
like to
the
jump onto this.
Conservative Party is getting weaker. Not the Labour Party getting stronger. The Conservatives are getting weaker.
The Labour Party's more united than it was over a year ago, and they admit that themselves.
I would start laughing, but unfortunately I can't laugh because I'll just end up choking. But I'm sure that was a stand-up comedy.
Do we need to take you to Manx Care, Archie, with that?
If I was to Manx Care, Oliver, I'd be waiting. You wouldn't have a year before the next political podcast because I'd still be waiting there.
Could we just discuss this anti-growth coalition thing?
Which?
The anti-growth coalition is effectively the Conservative Party, isn't it? You know.
Yes, I remember that.
Yeah. Them wanting to get
the anti-growth coalition is the. Just Stop Oil. It's XR.
Well, they were saying
it's Extinction Rebellion. It's Labour. It's the Liberal Democrats. It's the Greens. They're the growth.
But the funniest thing is it'll be difficult for Sakir because Liz Truss is going to have a dig in him when his main thing the other week was about growth, wasn't it? And she goes, well, you know what I mean? Because the whole anti-growth thing is just quite funny. Yeah.
I think if those tax cuts were funded, there wouldn't be such issues in the market. Personally, that's my own opinion. I might be entirely wrong. I might be right. That's my opinion. They're unfunded tax cuts, and unfunded tax cuts, never good.
No, never.
Not Conservative.
Well, have we got anything else to move on to? Oh, I think my laptop has just... my laptop either turned off or died, so that's unfortunate. Or it's re-shut down or something. What are we talking about now? We're talking about Isle of Man news.
Yeah.
So that gives me the time to have a look at Isle of Man news. So, of course, the cost of living crisis continues, as we know, throughout the globe. So the Isle of Man government have set up a couple of initiatives, such as the Community Fund for, I think it's creating warm spaces, if I'm not wrong. The £2 bus cap for November. That's a very interesting one. In education, we'll have a brief look at exam results, head teachers, and a ministerial move. That's all for Manx News. We'll only keep it brief.
Well, there was an interesting point on the first part. You mentioned everywhere around the globe thinking it's a cost of living crisis. It took Jacinda Ardern in New Zealand quite a few weeks in March to actually admit it was a cost of living crisis. The media were saying it, the people were saying it, the news pundits were saying it.
Oh, yes, I remember this.
She said no.
Yeah.
Yes.
She accepted it now?
Yes, she accepted it in a matter of weeks. But
well, in terms of Isle of Man exam results, I remember when... Well, first of all, the minister sort of did a U-turn. She said, we won't be publishing exam results. She's having a rocky ride, I believe, at the moment. But she wouldn't be publishing Isle of Man exam results because... she didn't really feel the need to, I assume, or she just said they do. They just said they weren't.
Believes that their schools have done better than the UK. They say we've had a strong year. We're better than the UK. Well, it's the opposite. We're not comparing. So
yes, I know. And she said that most students were satisfied and had reached university. But the results. I mean, some of the high schools have not released their exam results. The exam results on the board are not particular with this grade inflation clawing back on the grade inflation. I think it was a cutback of A* to B 7%.
They cut back across the board. So it's interesting. I think when the announcement there's only so much time, and the announcement comes out from Ofqual later in the year. That would be more interesting.
Yeah. But I'll just have a quick look at the stats. I think it was, what does it say here? This and date, yes.
Ooh, Cannon on the global business trips.
Yeah.
Waste of government money or not, Oliver?
Well, we'll see afterwards, won't we? We'll see the outcome of the trip. I love it when there'll be a Freedom of Information request in a couple of months' time, and it'll say it cost £8,000.
I wonder if because it flew, obviously, did they charter a jet?
The Isle of Man school students achieved an overall pass rate of more than 98% for their qualifications, with pass rate for GCSEs, IGCSEs, and other level 1 and 2 qualifications at 98.1%.
Yeah, but you must remember here that the pass rate...
A pass for level 1 and 2, well, that goes down to a D, doesn't it?
And for A-levels, it's an E.
Yeah. So you can alter the stats to suit yourself.
Well, everyone alters the stats, even in politics generally.
But they'll also say, well, it's the 1 to 9 in the UK, so we can't quite... You know what I mean? They'll do that, won't they? Anyway, the pass rate for A-levels, A-star to E, and other qualifications was at 98.8%. Well, that looks good, doesn't it? Because it's A-star to E. But at the end of the day, you can't get funding.
It goes to U after
Yeah,
E.
and also you can't... Oh, with more than half achieving A-star to B passes in subjects such as psychology, physics, and politics. So... There's high hopes for politics students out there, you know.
Each cohort is different, as they'll say, Oliver.
Yes. Alas, we will keep moving on. £2 bus cap for November. Why are they leaving it till November? You know, it's good though. Will they keep it a permanent £2 bus cap? Archie's been calling for them to reduce the
for students, yeah.
For students, yeah.
It doesn't. I don't think it makes much sense. Where I can drive from my home here and back,
yeah,
for less than it costs me, really, to make one trip to Douglas on a bus.
Yeah,
where I have to walk.
But the price
an hour to the bus stop.
Yeah,
I still have to walk 30 minutes from wherever the bus stops up to here. It's ridiculous.
But the price cap will solve, you know, will aid this issue, won't it?
Haven't heard that jingle in a while, but that's our recommendations jingle. Any recommendations for us this week, Oliver?
Well, I don't know whether I've ever said it before, but the Rest is Politics podcast is a great podcast. I listen to it on the bus quite frequently.
No, I don't think you've ever said it before.
No, anyway, I just like it at the moment. They're really regular updates, and they're taking sort of like each day as it comes with doing a podcast. So if something big's happened, they'll do a podcast. What else have I watched or listened to or read? I'm just busy at the moment. Channel 4. There's a new thing on. Make Me Prime Minister. I think you should go watch it. I've not watched it yet, but I hear it's great. I think Alistair Campbell's got something to do with it. But it's like an apprentice style, like The Apprentice, but with people that want to be the alternative Prime Minister. I think that, what's her name's on it? You know, the councillor lady. You shall get out of this Zoom now. Don't you kick me out. What's her name? Oh, that councillor woman last year. Do you remember?
I do.
What was her name?
Do you remember?
I can't remember.
Jackie Weaver.
Jackie Weaver,
yes.
That was it. She's supposed to be on it as an alternative prime ministerial candidate. So I'm really looking forward to watching that. So, yeah. Hopefully I recommend that. I've not watched it yet, but I hear it's great. So, there we go. Archibald.
Well, yes, I read a while ago. This is a wonderful book, which is called On Freedom.
It's a small book. It's about the size of an A4 notepad. A5 notepad. It's quite. I like the book. I like the cover. It's very.
I'd say slightly bigger than A6.
A6 maybe. Sorry on my. Yeah, but
A4 style.
It's very appealing to the eye. It's got some great. It's really
it's called
great.
On Freedom. It's by Cass R. Sunstein. So it's about our nudges in life. So maybe with GPS. And are we actually really free? Or do nudges impede on our freedom? Are they always useful? Are they in fact useful for our freedoms? That's what I'd recommend for you to read. It's not overly long because all of it's commented on, but it's rather interesting and it's quite a fun read, and the argument builds up quite well.
Fun?
Yes, very interesting. And then I would recommend the wonderful Richard Strauss opera, Salome. Very good. I won't spoil it. It's a tragedy, one act, about an hour and a half, 90 minutes running time or something, or 2 hours running time or something similar to there. Very good. I love tragedies. I watched a wonderful one streaming from the Met Opera last night at home.
Lovely.
It was a 2013 rendition of, I can't quite remember the name of it. Give me half a minute and I shall get it for you.
Goodness me. Anyway, in the meantime, what else would I like to recommend? I don't know, but...
Ah, yes. It's Russian opera.
Oh, Russian.
Is based on the book by Alexander Pushkin.
I think I've
Eugene
heard of that.
Wonjin. Oh, I can't quite pronounce the name. 1 minute. I might be able to get it. Listen to it. I can't quite remember what it sounded like. My Russian pronunciation's not overly good. If you couldn't tell. There we are. Oh, it won't play. Anyway, that was rather good. Yes, I would recommend that. Go to Met Opera. You can get a free trial, actually, for 7 days. A wonderful selection over there, so yes.
Fantastic. Well, I think that includes this very interesting podcast, which has sort of sent me round the world in terms of my thoughts, opinions on religion and politics, and it's basically sort of... I don't know whether I ever was... whether I was really, against religion and politics mixing. I don't, it's made me think about it for definite.
I think we should apply. We will come back to this issue, hopefully with a guest.
With a guest, and maybe they might be a bit more a bit more informed than I am, or have a more concentrated. Maybe they'll
provide a different start. Different stance. Yes.
Yeah. Well, that concludes this week's episode.
Hope you've enjoyed. And as usual, you can listen back to the past episodes of the Politibabble podcast on manxradio.com/podcast/Politibabble. That is manxradio.com/podcast/Politibabble. If you do want to come on, discuss it, or have any thoughts about this issue on today, do get in touch on our social media platforms, and we'd be most happy to engage or get you on to discuss, debate, and be grilled.
You've been Politibabbled.